The petite final, which is for the crews that finished 3rd and 4th in this race, will be Sunday morning at 7:20 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and the grand final will be at 11:10.
And mentioning the fact that if you do have loved ones in the race here, you might consider getting a souvenir DVD that is available for you. They are available at the merchandise tent, and they're only $15. They become available about an hour after the race time.
Down at the start, race number 29, Women's Collegiate Novice B, Lane 1, UCLA, Lane 2, Washington State University, Lane 3, Kansas State University, 4, University of San Diego, 5, there's a scratch, there's nobody in that lane, and in lane 6, University of Texas. We have a start, we're 100 meters into the race, and right now, the Bruins in lane 1, UCLA is your race leader by about a half a boat over Kansas State, who's in lane 3, followed by Washington State in lane 2, then outside the University of Texas, and the 5th place crew is University of San Diego. We're now 250 meters into the race, and UCLA with a full 6-seat advantage over Kansas State, who has a 5-seat advantage over Washington State. And then outside, University of Texas is in the mix for that 3rd, 2nd position. The only crew that's off the pace right now is University of San Diego. UCLA still has the lead and appears to have opened water between the next crew. That 2nd place crew now is definitely the Wildcats from Kansas State. Then I'd say over here in lane 6, University of Texas is in the 3rd position, followed by the Cougars from Washington State, and the University of San Diego is in that 5th position. So 500 meters down, your race leader, lane 1, UCLA. Then lane 3, Kansas State is in the 2nd spot. University of Texas giving them all they can handle out here in lane 6. Then it's Washington State, and finally University of San Diego. That's the call at 600 meters.
Well, once again, kind of unusual that a crew out in the outside lane is inserting themselves into things, but Texas out there is certainly not going away. Lane assignments, University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA is in lane number 1, and they are our current leader. In lane 2 is Washington State. In lane 3, fighting for the lead, is Kansas. In lane number 4, it's the University of San Diego. Lane number 5 has scratched. That would have been Iowa. And then Texas is out in lane number 6. This is the Women's Collegiate Novice B. And it is race number 29 as the crews come down our 2,000 meter course.
Again, this is a race between recruits, UCLA, Washington State, Kansas State, University of San Diego, Iowa, Texas, all Division I scholarship programs, so they would be out there recruiting, trying to get their programs up to a level where they can catch the selector's eye. So UCLA doing very well, and they would be pleased with this. They are rapidly improving in their national level, and Washington State has been in NCAA, had NCAA appearances. Kansas State, University of San Diego, it's their dream to get there. So we're seeing the start of their NCAA campaign here.
I don't know, Patty, you're putting a lot of pressure on the coaches, mentioning that this has to do strictly with their recruiting here. I don't know about that.
That's what it's all about. You know, your JVs and your varsity are really based on how you develop your athletes. But in these early stages, and your walk-on athletes are really, really important in college rowing. It's about 90% of your talent. But in these early races, generally the athletes that rowed in high school have the edge.
UCLA continues on the lead here in the Women's Collegiate Novice B. There are 3 heats in this category. That means that only the top 2 will move forward to the grand final in their particular category. And across the line there, we've got UCLA in lane number 1, Kansas in lane number 3, and then all the way on the outside, watch out, the sneaker Texas is coming along with Washington State and University of San Diego. So once again, we have an outside lane crew challenging, and so far in this crew classic, the outside lanes have struggled. So we'll see how Texas handles the situation. UCLA continues along the shoreline and in the lead as they approach 1,500 meter mark of our 2,000 meter course. And then Kansas, to the middle of the race course, or the middle of the lanes, is in second spot. They have opened up some water over Washington State, and then all the way to the outside, Texas has faded just a little bit. They made a run at it just before they got to the 1,000 meter mark, and have lost ground a little bit during those 250 to 500 meters that have occurred since then.
So University of San Diego is struggling back there. We're seeing a lot of whitewater, so I don't know if they're having equipment problems or whether they've actually caught the wakes of the launches. But as we're seeing that, you know, they're a good program, they have a good reputation, and it's unusual to see all of this water coming up from their boat. So something's not quite right there, but taking it back to the front boats, 1 and 2 move through to the grand final, 3 and 4 to the petites, and no one's giving an inch here. They're all trying to get an inch by just pushing a little bit harder, sitting up, dropping the blade in, and driving it home because now they hear the crowd.
UCLA continues on the lead there on the shore side with the white shell and the powder blue jerseys. Kansas is coming on strong to them, but the only challenge that they might have is coming from Washington State. Washington State has picked up the stroke a little bit and begun to close a little bit of ground, but they had a lot of ground to make up. It's Texas on the far outside, and certainly USD struggling as the amount of whitewater coming up looks like they are in the middle of some rapids. It is UCLA on the shoreline, and they have a command here as all of a sudden Washington State really grinds it out. They're making a wild run at Kansas, not exactly sure whether they think they can overtake them in that short period of time or they're just trying to finish up strong to make a statement for the petite final. Looking at the finish line, unofficially UCLA, Kansas, then Washington State, a lot of open water back to Texas, who had been in the hunt early as they got approaching the 1,000 meter mark. They looked like they might make them a run on the outside, but that did not come to pass as the University of San Diego is trailing in this particular novice collegiate women's B heat number 29, and we'll have another heat to go in this one.
Right, and I think something happened there because, as I said, University of San Diego has done very well in their early season races. And the problem is if you catch a crab or something, you can see those waves across the water from up here, and they are rowing right through them. Those wakes will push the boat all over the place. They'll struggle through them, and there's not much you can do because the officials have to follow the leaders. So once you drop behind the lead officials, it's just awful. So now they're moving into cleaner water, but it has really been a struggle for them. So something happened that they lost the momentum, and then once the officials got in front of them, it was just a slog against the wakes and everything else. So for them, I'm sure, but that's novice rowing. There's always a story to tell.
Jim, just out of curiosity, did you see University of San Diego get into a bit of a struggle back there?
It's just a bit of the wind and anticipation that kind of enters in. Once again, if the boat starts to be pushed down on the starboard side, sometimes the blades don't go on square, and that offsets the balance, and then you try to do strange things with your upper body. But didn't really see it. but I'm sure that entered into it. The starting line in State.